I was 3,000 miles away, in a hotel room in Boston, when my phone buzzed. It was a security alert. Motion detected, in the master bedroom. I frowned. My house in Savannah was supposed to be empty. It was a historic estate. A passion project I had poured 2 years and nearly $1.5 million into restoring. I opened the app, expecting to see a stray cat or maybe a delivery driver at the wrong door. Instead, I saw my mother. Patricia was standing in my walk-in closet, holding up my vintage Chanel jacket. Behind her, my 3 sisters Ashley, Jessica, and Brittany were rifling through my jewelry box and pulling designer dresses off their hangers. They weren't just visiting. They had set up a ring light. They were live streaming. I turned up the volume on my phone and heard my mother's voice, bright and fake, addressing a camera I couldn't see. "Welcome to the closet cleanout. Ladies, everything must go today. Cash app only." She laughed, tossing my silk scarf to Brittany. "Don't worry about the owner. Madison won't mind. She's just a walking wallet. She doesn't even know how to wear these things properly. Honestly, she exists to serve you girls." I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and watched my mother auction off my life for quick cash. A cold, hard clarity settled over me. They weren't just stealing my clothes. They were stealing my dignity. Selling it off piece by piece to strangers on the internet. They thought I was their servant. They thought I was weak. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. Before I tell you how I turned their greed into a federal prison sentence, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I sat in the silence of my hotel room, the glow of the phone screen illuminating the dark. On the display, the live stream comments were rolling in faster than my mother could read them. Strangers were bidding on my life, and my family was facilitating the auction with the enthusiasm of game show hosts. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I watched with the detached precision of a forensic accountant. I started screen recording every second, capturing the usernames, the timestamps, and the specific items they were selling. My vintage Cartier watch, the pearl necklace my grandmother left me, specifically me, not them. The limited edition architectural prints I had framed just last month. For years, I had been the silent investor in the business of their lives. I paid off Patricia's credit card debt when she overspent on vacations she couldn't afford. I covered Ashley's tuition when she decided to go to art school, which she quit 3 months later. I paid for Jessica's car repairs and Brittany's legal fees. I did it because I thought it was the price of admission for having a family. I thought if I paid enough, eventually, they would see me as a person, not just a resource. Watching my mother laugh as she stuffed my cashmere sweaters into a trash bag for a buyer named Bargain Hunter 88, I finally understood the mechanism at work. It wasn't just greed. It was something far more insidious. It was the trap of normalized cruelty. See, my mother didn't think she was stealing. If you hooked her up to a polygraph right now, she would pass. In her mind, she wasn't robbing a house. She was collecting dividends. She had spent my entire life normalizing the idea that my labor, my success, and my property were communal assets. She had dehumanized me, to the point where taking my things felt as natural to her as harvesting crops from a field she believed she owned. I wasn't a daughter to Patricia. I was an asset class. And when an asset isn't present to be used, you liquidate it. That realization was the final tumblers clicking into place in my mind. The guilt I had carried for years, the feeling that I was cold, or ungrateful, or selfish for wanting boundaries, evaporated instantly. You don't feel guilty for evicting a parasite. You just call the exterminator. On the screen, the closet was mostly empty now. They had moved efficiently, stripping the shelves bare. But Patricia wasn't done. She wasn't satisfied with just the clothes. She wanted to make a mark. I watched as she walked out of the bedroom and down the grand staircase into the main parlor. She stopped in front of the fireplace. My breath caught in my throat. That fireplace was the heart of the house. It was a massive, Hand-carved Italian marble masterpiece from the 1870s. Original to the estate. It was one of the primary reasons the property was designated a National Historic Landmark. Patricia tapped the marble with her fingernails, looking at the camera with a sneer. "And this ugly thing," she said, gesturing to the mantel. "Madison kept it because she's obsessed with history. But honestly, it takes up the whole wall. We can't even fit a decent 70-inch TV here with this stone monstrosity in the way." Ashley laughed from behind the camera. "We should just get rid of it. Mom, open up the room." Patricia's eyes lit up. She looked around the room and spotted a heavy tool bag the contractors had left in the corner. She walked over and pulled out a sledgehammer. "You know what she said," weighing the hammer in her hand. "It's my house now. I can decorate however I want." She wasn't just going to steal from me. She was going to destroy history to assert her dominance. She wanted to prove that nothing of mine was sacred. I looked at the phone, my thumb hovering over the emergency dialer. If I called the police now, they would arrive, see a family dispute, maybe write a report, and leave. Patricia would get a warning. She would spin a story about how she was just renovating. No, a warning wasn't enough. I needed her to cross a line she could never uncross. I needed her to commit an act so irreversible that no amount of gaslighting could save her. I opened my messaging app. I didn't call the police. I typed a text to my mother. I typed the message with steady thumbs. I didn't send a threat. Threats make narcissists defensive. They make them cover their tracks. No. I needed Patricia to feel powerful. I needed her to feel like she was the one in control, the one calling the shots. I needed to feed her ego until it burst. I typed, "Mom, please don't hurt the fireplace. It is an original fixture, and it's extremely fragile. If you leave it alone, I will wire you $5,000 tomorrow morning to buy whatever entertainment center you want. Please." I read it over. It was perfect. It sounded weak. It sounded desperate. It sounded like the Madison they knew, the doormat. The girl who threw money at problems to make the yelling stop. To Patricia, this text wouldn't look like a trap. It would look like submission. I hit send. On the security feed, I watched the notification light up the screen of Patricia's phone, which she had placed on the coffee table next to the sledgehammer. She glanced down, saw my name, and smirked. She picked up the phone, holding it out so Ashley and Jessica could read it over her shoulder. They laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound that distorted through the microphone. $5,000. Jessica scoffed, reading the text aloud for the livestream audience. "She thinks she can pay us off. She thinks she can tell us what to do in our own house." Patricia shook her head, looking into the camera lens with a look of theatrical pity. "See what I have to deal with," she said to her viewers. "My own daughter thinks she can bribe me. She thinks her money gives her the right to dictate how I decorate. She cares more about this dusty old rock than she cares about her family's happiness." I watched from my hotel room, my pulse steady. That was exactly what I needed her to say. By reading the text aloud, she had just created evidence. She had acknowledged that she knew the property was valuable, that she knew the owner objected to the destruction, and that she had been offered a reasonable alternative. She wasn't destroying the fireplace out of ignorance or necessity. She was doing it out of spite. "I don't want her charity," Patricia announced, her voice rising in performance. "And I certainly don't take orders from a walking wallet. Madison needs to learn that she can't buy respect. She needs to understand that this is my home now." She tossed the phone back onto the sofa. It bounced once and landed face down. I sat back in my chair. The trap was set. The bait was taken. If I had called the police 5 minutes ago, it would have been a civil dispute. Officers hate civil disputes. They tell you to take it to small claims court. They tell you it's a family matter. But willful, malicious destruction of property, after being explicitly warned, that moves the needle. And destruction of a federally protected element within a national historic landmark, that moves the needle right into federal jurisdiction. Patricia picked up the sledgehammer again. She tested the weight of it, swinging it lightly in her grip. She looked at the fireplace carved by Italian artisans in 1875, Survived the Civil War era. Survived hurricanes. She survived a century and a half of history, and she didn't see beauty. She saw a target. She saw a way to hurt me that money couldn't fix. Get a good angle. Brittany, Patricia commanded. I want Madison to see this. I want her to see exactly what happens when she tries to control me. I leaned closer to my screen. Go ahead. Mom, I whispered to the empty hotel room. Swing. She swung. The sound was sickening. A wet, heavy crunch, as steel met century-old stone. The intricate carving of the cherub on the left side of the mantelpiece exploded into white dust. Patricia didn't stop. She laughed. A high, breathless sound of exertion and glee. And swung again. The central arch cracked. A third swing brought the entire left shelf crashing down onto the hearth. On the live stream, the comments were going wild. A mix of shock and morbid entertainment. Ashley was zooming in on the wreckage, narrating the destruction like she was covering a sporting event. There goes the ugly old rock, making way for the flat screen. Baby. I watched the feed from my hotel room, my heart beating in a slow, heavy rhythm. I wasn't sad. I thought I would be. I loved that house. I loved that history, but in that moment, all I felt was the click of a lock, engaging. That wasn't just marble breaking. That was the last tether of my obligation snapping. With every blow of the hammer, she was liberating me. She was destroying the only version of herself I had left to protect. When the dust settled, the fireplace was a ruin. Patricia stood amidst the rubble, panting, her face flushed with the high of destruction. She looked at the camera, wiped marble dust from her cheek, and grinned. See, she said. Problem solved. Madison can keep her 5,000. I'd rather have the satisfaction. You certainly will, I said to the screen. I minimized the camera app and opened my contacts. I didn't call 911 yet. I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. Madison, it's late. It's done, I said, my voice flat. They didn't just trespass. Patricia destroyed the Italian mantelpiece. I have it on video, including audio of her acknowledging my ownership and the value before she did it. It was willful. Malicious destruction of a registered key feature of a national historic landmark. I could hear Marcus shifting in his chair. The rustle of fabric. The lawyer in him was waking up. You're sure it's the mantle, the one listed in the preservation easement? The very one. It's rubble. Marcus. It's a federal offense. Okay, he said, his tone shifting from sleepy to shark-like. Call the federal liaison for the historic district first. Then the police. Tell them it's an active crime scene involving protected heritage assets. I'm on my way to the station to meet you to meet your proxy. I hung up and made the calls. My voice was calm. Factual. Lethal. I wasn't a hysterical daughter reporting a domestic dispute. I was a property owner, reporting a felony. I gave them the address, the nature of the crime, and the specific federal statutes being violated. I sent the video file to the dispatch email while I was still on the line. Units are en route, the dispatcher confirmed. Federal agents are being notified. Thank you, I said. One more thing. The suspects are still inside. I'm going to secure the premises. I switched back to my smart home app. My family was currently celebrating in the living room, popping a bottle of my champagne to toast their victory over the fireplace. They thought they had won. They thought they were the queens of the castle. I tapped the security tab. Exterior doors lock all. Deadbolts. Engage. On the screen, I saw them jump slightly as the heavy electronic locks slammed home simultaneously on the front and back doors. Brittany walked over to the front door and tried the handle. It didn't budge. She frowned. Jiggling it, I tapped the climate tab. HVAC off. System mode shutdown. The hum of the air conditioning died. Savannah is humid in the summer, without airflow. That house would become a stifling box within minutes. Then, I tapped the media tab. I scrolled past my jazz playlists. past the ambient lo-fi. I found the playlist I used for testing the sound system's maximum output. I selected Ride of the Valkyries. I dragged the volume slider all the way to the right. 100%. I hit play. On the camera feed. The room exploded with sound. The speakers, hidden in the crown molding and subwoofers built into the floor, roared to life. My family clapped their hands over their ears, screaming at each other. But the music drowned them out completely. It was deafening. It was disorienting. It was the sound of judgment coming for them. Patricia screamed at Ashley, pointing helplessly at the smart speaker, as Wagner's opera blasted through the house. They yanked at the locked doors, trapped in a suffocating, thunderous cage of their own making. I watched calmly from my hotel, sipping water. The opera was elegant, but the faint police sirens in the background were the real music. On my phone's live feed, my living room looked like a Baroque nightmare, sweat-soaked faces, smeared makeup, blue and red patrol lights strobing across the windows. I hit pause. Silence fell, then a voice thundered. Police opened the door. I remotely unlocked the deadbolt. Patricia rushed forward, instantly shifting from panic to performance, accusing me of imprisoning and torturing them. 2 officers entered, followed by a man in a charcoal suit, Agent Miller from the Federal Art Crime Team. He ignored the drama and examined the shattered marble fireplace. Then he delivered the truth: the house was a federally protected historic estate. The destruction wasn't a family dispute, it was a felony under the National Historic Preservation Act. Patricia's confidence collapsed as the word federal sank in. She tried to charm, deflect, bargain, but Miller calmly cuffed her. The live stream captured the exact moment her arrogance died. Officers then discovered my sisters preparing to steal designer goods. With video proof already live, they were arrested for grand larceny, pinned against the wall. Patricia screamed for me to stop it. I spoke through the speakers. Cold and steady, she hadn't broken a rule, she'd broken the law. I was no longer her daughter. I was the witness. They were let out in handcuffs. The live stream finally cut, but not before the internet saw everything. Weeks later, Patricia tried to spin herself as the victim. I responded once by releasing the raw security footage. Public opinion turned instantly. Her lies collapsed. Her lawsuits were dismissed. Restitution followed. Probation followed. Silence followed. Months later, I sat alone by the restored fireplace. The house quiet and secure. The most important lock wasn't digital, it was the boundary I had finally set. I had built a fortress, and for the first time in my life, the drawbridge was up.